the overlying question, why do we sleep? Besides, it feels great. Here's one theory, repair or restorative theory. Basically, it says when you sleep, your body rebuilds itself. For instance, we see cell division is increased while we're sleeping. Sounds like a pretty good theory, right? We sleep because our body needs to regenerate itself, rebuild itself. If you are training for marathons or if you're a bodybuilder, they say make sure and get sleep because it rebuilds the muscles that you just broke down. So what happens if we don't sleep? What happened to Randy Gardner? He went 11 days without sleeping. Did his body completely break down? Did his body turn to mush? So our question is, how great is this theory? Some evidence against this theory that says, well, maybe this isn't the only reason why we sleep. So if you're running around, going to classes, running errands, doing your Christmas shopping, and wrapping presents, you're busy, busy, busy. You need approximately 8 hours of sleep. If you have a couch potato day where you're munching on potato chips and drinking hot cocoa, you need about 8 hours of sleep. If you have a couch potato day, it doesn't allow you to just have 2 hours of sleep, right? Because you're being inactive. You still want right about that 8 hours of sleep. So some evidence against this restorative theory. If you were having a crazy active day running around, you would think that your body would need more hours to rebuild. But they find that that's not the case necessarily. Right around that 8-hour mark, you might want to add an hour, subtract an hour, but for the most part, 8 hours is right about our average, depending upon, or not dependent upon how much activity we have. We find that we can make up sleep easily. If you have to pull an all-nighter, like we said, you don't have to sleep an extra 8 hours. And what we saw with Randy Gardner, if you're completely deprived of sleep, we only see modest effects. So let's take a look at this. Complete deprivation equals modest effects. Why would we consider these things modest effects? If we look backwards at going 11 days without sleep, you're a little grumpy, you have poor concentration, you might have slight hallucinations. Why are these considered modest? You can still function. You're not turning into a pile of mush. What happens if you go 11 days without food? You die. What happens if you go 11 days without water? You die. What happens if you go 11 days without sleep? You're grumpy. So you see the contrast there? Food and water causes death. Lack of sleep causes a little bit of grumpiness. You might start seeing a few things, but at the grand scale of things, you're still alive and still functioning. Okay, so pretty modest in comparison to if you deprive yourself of other things. Okay, so into dreaming we go. This is where it gets pretty interesting. Why do we dream? What do we dream? What do our dreams mean? The content of our dreams is where we'll start. What do we dream about? Anybody remember from the homework? What you did the previous day is the most common type of dream content. The daily conflict, inner conflict, specifically on your homework, you want to pay attention to your previous day's activities. So here's one study. We like to do lots of studies on what do people dream about. Here's one of them. The top one that students reported was falling, being attacked or pursued, trying repeatedly to do something, school, teachers, and studying, sexual experiences, arriving too late, eating, being frozen with fright, the death of a loved one, being locked up, finding money, that one would be fun, finding money, swimming, snakes, being inappropriately dressed, being smothered, being nude in public, fire, failing an examination, seeing yourself as dead, and killing someone. Wow. Have any of you, don't answer that, killed someone in your dream? That just seems scary to me. I don't think I've ever had that one. Finding money would be pretty cool, though. So pretty interesting. Do these sound familiar to you? No? No? So theories of dreaming. Why do we dream? Good old Freud is where we're going to start. Freud says it has to do with our unconscious conflict being expressed, which is cool if you know what unconsciousness is. What is our unconsciousness? Is it the same thing as subconscious? For today, we'll say close enough. There's a technical difference there, but we're not going to get into that. Take 102 and we'll get into that. So similar to subconsciousness. So what is that? Can you see your unconscious? Can you think about your unconscious? Are you aware of your unconsciousness? No. So this is a part of our being that is below our awareness level. Okay, so everything above our awareness level, we can think about. We can ponder, we can know. The unconsciousness is the part of our being that is there, it's active, there are things going on, but we push it to a portion where we can't think about it. So it's underneath our thinking capabilities. So what he is saying is there's some sort of conflict going on down here that we are not aware of, and our dreams are an expression of this conflict. He breaks it down into two different portions, the manifest content and the latent content. Okay, so manifest content, we're going to start there. Manifest content is your obvious dream story. So if I said, what did you dream about last night? That would be your manifest content. Anybody care to share a dream that they've ever had? Dream about car accidents?
Yeah, like rain
Okay, let's use that. The manifest content of your dream is that you were driving along, you were on a wet road, it sounds. There are people in the car, and you got in a car accident. That is the manifest content, your obvious dream story. So if I said, what did you dream about? You would say, here's the story. What it's doing is it is protecting you. This storyline is protecting you from this underlying conflict. So here's this conflict, and it's bubbling up, and it comes out as this story. So it takes this conflict, puts it in a pretty little package so that you can handle it. Because Freud says you can't handle this going on down here, this conflict. So instead it comes up as a car accident. So that is the manifest content, is the obvious dream story. Your latent content is a symbolic representation of an earlier problem. So the latent content is actually this underlining meaning portion. So what does getting in a car accident on wet roads with people in your car actually mean? What is this underlining problem or issue or conflict? So latent content is the part that we're trying to figure out based upon your pretty little storyline or your not so pretty little storyline. So when we look at dream interpretation, we're trying to reveal what is going on based upon your storyline. So dream interpretation, we're revealing the underlining meaning based upon our obvious storyline. So if you like that description better, you can change out some of those words. So if we take a car accident on a wet road with people in the car, how could we interpret that? What might be her latent content, her underlining meaning? Maybe there's a conflict with somebody in the car. Fear of death. Maybe you're thirsty. It could be something as simple as you're thirsty. Hey, what else? Play psychologist for a minute. Maybe there's something about cleansing. Have to go to the bathroom. It's a possibility. Could it have absolutely nothing to do with a car? Could it have something to do with what else could it deal with? Ice skating. How so? Slipping? Maybe she saw a slippery and wet sign that day. And now it's encoded. Tons and tons of possibilities. Can we look and say, this is what it must be? Why not? So can we look into her life and say, this must be it? Now, why can't we look into her life and say that? Because we don't know anything about her life. Even if we did know anything about her life, can we see her unconsciousness? No. So there's a huge warning sign if anybody's like, oh, you had that dream? This is what it means. Because they can't see your unconsciousness. Now, can you see your unconsciousness? No. But at least it's a part of you, so you being able to determine what this latent content is a little more realistic. So his caution is just saying, be careful of those people who walk up to you and say, oh, I can interpret your dream. It must be this. Now, not to discredit any dream interpreters. I know there's dream interpretation theory or therapies and different things like that, but he just says use caution. They can't see our consciousness, so they can't say for certain this is what it is. A lot of times the dream books are good for entertainment or maybe to spark some thoughts of your own, but does flying always 100% mean that you feel light and inhibited? Not always, not 100%. Does water always mean some sort of cleansing? Not always. If you don't like that model, it's okay. Here's a different one. This one's called the activation synthesis model. The activation synthesis model has two parts to it, the activation and the synthesis part. So activation. Activation portion is saying that there is some sort of stimulation that is happening in your brainstem, and it's going to take itself and travel outside to your outer cortex of your brain. Now, the outer cortex of your brain is where you store a lot of your information. So as it comes to the outer portion of your brain, it's going to pick up different things that you have stored. So let's say you pick up cookie, you pick up flower, you pick up high school, and you pick up your friend Joan. Why? I don't know, because that's what you do. That's what was stimulated. What it's going to do is take these things, put them together, synthesize them, and make them into a dream. Technical, but very basic, all at the same time. So you have the activation portion, this activity, this stimulation, and then the synthesis portion, bringing everything together. So if we look at our homework and what we more commonly dream of is our previous day's activities, that would make some sense with this, right? Because you just stored this information, so when this activation comes by, it's going to pick up this just stored information, put it all together, and make it into some sort of fun dream. For the most part, we tend to dream about things that we know, people we know, situations we know, locations we know. Every now and then we'll throw in some random something, but for the most part, it's something we've experienced. So here's something. Have you ever fallen asleep in front of the television and all of a sudden whatever's on TV starts to become part of your dream? Does that ever happen to anybody? How about this one? You are sleeping, your alarm goes off, and instead of waking up, you put the alarm sound beep, beep, beep into your dream. Does that ever happen? We're going to look at, are your senses active while you're sleeping, or are they completely dead? So your senses send signals to your brain, for instance, the beep, beep, beep of your alarm clock, and lo and behold, they become a part of your dreams. This can happen with smells, if somebody's cooking something, sounds. Your book and your homework talked about DEMP and WERP. They did a study. What they did is they took a spray bottle and they spritzed people as they were in REM sleep, which is interesting. Some homeworks say that they dumped water on the people. They didn't dump water on the people. That would wake them up. It was just a little brain mist, okay? So they sprayed them a little bit on their skin so that they could sense the water. What happened to their dream content? They dreamed about water. They dreamed about leaky roofs. They dreamed about taking a shower. They dreamed about being thirsty. But water was incorporated into their dream 42% of the time, which is pretty significant. You know, I butcher last names, so I call it WERP, which is completely not right. But I'm not quite sure how to put that L and P together. Well, so what does this tell us about our senses and our dream content? They're active. While you're asleep and while you're dreaming, they're synthesized. They come into your senses, play a part in your dreaming. Sleep disorders. What happens when you don't sleep, quote unquote, perfectly?